Welcome back to Uncut and welcome back to another industry interview. This interview is actually the first interview we are posting since moving to LA, so it's quite exciting to be here.
Today with us we have Chad Atkinson, a special effects artist based in Australia now, who worked on I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Chad actually has an Emmy for his outstanding prosthetic work in the show The Pacific.
Additionally, he has done work on films such as the Spy Kids movies, Chronicles of Narnia, and Hostel.
Before we go on to the interview, please make sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment if you want to see more interviews from industry professionals such as this one.
And without further ado, here is Chad Atkinson.
My name is Chad Atkinson. My role is special effects makeup artist. I think the title in I Know What You Did Last Summer, I think it was prosthetics technician or something like that. So yeah. the title changes, depends on what I'm sort of doing. And how did I get started in this industry? Well, that kind of goes back now 30 years. And originally I was an art student, and I wanted to find, sort of my way in the world, whatever that would be. But I always had an interest in movies and special effects and sci-fi and horror movies. And I didn't see that being a commercial artist was very rewarding. And so I found a school in Pittsburgh that taught special effects makeup, had a sort of a program in there, not unlike the makeup schools today. But so I went there to Pittsburgh, learned a few basic skills, and then me and my friend moved to California. This is in 1996, and I found a tiny little apartment just like you guys are in, a little studio thing. And we had no furniture or, anything. I think I may have had a bed, like a blow-up bed or something like that, just the only bit of furniture. And then we just basically sent heaps and heaps of resumes out till finally a couple of them stuck with no experience. And they just, they had come in and sweep floors or any of that sort of thing. And my first actual job, unpaid, was for a company called Makeup Effects Labs. And they had had me tear apart the animatronics for Super Mario Brothers. Remember that one from John Leguizamo and Bob Hoskins? And it was all the Goomba Goombas and I think Yoshi too. So I had to tear apart all the workings in it for them. And then my next paid job, Sony Studios called me. Like I said, I just carpet bombed the entire Los Angeles industry, and Sony Pictures got it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we there's a PA position for you if you want it." And so I went there, and they put me with the Amalgamated Dynamics group, and it was for all the puppets and all the big creatures for Starship Troopers. So that was my actual first paid job, was for Starship Troopers, and that was right on set and puppeteering and doing all those, working with all those crazy mech bugs and the brain bug and all that sort of stuff. So that was my first actual gig. So it goes back a long ways, but yeah, I'm celebrating 30 years coming up.
Wow, congratulations for that, for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
And you started your own company, I saw. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I've had a couple businesses kind of start and fall over. And when I first got here, it was I teamed up with Larry Van Dijnhoven and Gab Ficini, and we had a company called Third Eye Effects, and we did about 3 or 4 films. One of them being Patrick remake, an Australian horror sort of classic from the 70s. And then because I live in the Gold Coast and they live in Melbourne, it was kind of hard to get going. And then the second company I had going was one called Stingray Sushi Studios, and we had that one going for about 3 years, and had some really good success doing props. Did a lot of dead bodies for Furiosa, which was really good. Love and Monsters, did a lot of props for that, so that was a real successful run there. And then so now I'm basically back to myself again, and then I do props and prosthetics, and also I teach too. So I have a little workshops on Sunday nights where I teach students how to do what I do, prosthetics and props.
That's amazing. And you do that in a physical environment?
Yeah. I have an actual like studio space. It's fairly big. It's like a car garage, maybe like four. How big would that be? Yeah, it's a pretty big studio. So yeah, it fits about I think 20 people in it when I actually get going. So yeah.
Wow. So getting a little bit more deep into your actual role and what you usually do, can you tell us a little bit more about being a mechanical effects and puppeteer? What does that entail?
So mechanical effects and things like that, that's geez, we don't do it as much anymore. That was sort of a 90s sort of wave. You occasionally do see puppets. I'm not saying it completely went away, but the animatronics world was basically that. It was making a creature or a person or whatever it is, and it had maybe servos inside it, like radio control servos for the eyes to move or the mouth or whatever specific thing you needed to move. Could be like I helped with the Dune TV series for Sci-Fi Channel, and that one it's like a big worm. That's the worm. So it had the worm mechanisms in it, so it's all cable controlled. And then like for Tremors, the TV series, excuse me, those were the great big El Blanco worm. So we had a lot of different. There's a lot of different things that you do, but it usually comes down to like cable control or sometimes hydraulic. So there's hydraulic controls going inside things, and that was what they did for Starship Troopers. A lot of those big mech bugs were controlled by hydraulic systems. Insane. Like there's engineers that are involved in it. It's way beyond my understanding. I have a basic idea of what they're doing, but I have no idea how to put that stuff together. I'm there to either puppeteer or light maintenance of stuff. So yeah, but that's been a long time ago since doing any mechy stuff, and now I mostly do props and prosthetics, and that's just gluing down rubber things on people's faces or making a rubber version of an axe or something like that.
Awesome. Before we get into I Know What You Did Last Summer, earlier you mentioned the Pacific, which got you a Primetime Emmy Award. Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like and how it feels to get such a prestigious award?
Yeah, all of it was a big surprise. So back in 2007, like, I would say maybe February or March of 2007, Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger from K&B Studios, that's where I worked for about 10 years. They'd have a morning meeting and go, we have these jobs coming. This is the jobs we're currently working on. We have this job in Australia. It's a World War II one. The downside is we would need a crew to go to Australia for a year. Does anybody want to go, reluctantly, does anybody want to go to Australia? And I was like, how long for? And they're like, oh, it's about a year. I'm like, sign me up. Let's go. Like, that sounds incredible. Like, I always like the idea of, starting off in Los Angeles and then flying around the world. We called it like the world tour there. Like, let's go, Bulgaria or to South Africa or wherever it might take you. It's always exciting. So yeah, I took the Australian job. It was for the Pacific, HBO. It's a Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks production. So it was going to be monumental. And we created a bunch of prosthetics at the studio in LA, and then a bunch of dummies, right? So I think all up, we made 30 or 40 dummies, prosthetic dummies to place in various scenes of war. And then we flew to Australia in June of 2007 and met up with an Australian company called J&B Effects, headed up by Jason Baird, and he's here on the Gold Coast where I am. And he had his team, so we had a team fly over, and then we joined his team, and it was just a big prosthetics team, and doing war gore basically. And so we're here for a year. Amazing production, incredible crew, Australian crew. mixed with the American crew. And then that happened, and then we kind of went our separate ways. The show aired, and then there was the nominations came in sort of the year after. So it was almost 2 years after we had wrapped.
Oh wow.
The show had did its run, and then there was now the nominations. I think 2009 it came out on TV, and then 2010 was the nominations. And yeah, I got an email from Howard Bergen saying, "Hey, I put your name forward, for the Emmy. We'll see what happens." And then not too long after, he's like, "You got the nomination." We're like, "Oh my god!" So it's up. He's like, "Yeah, it's up to you if you want to fly back." And I couldn't believe it because I was basically just on set dragging dummies around and throwing blood around and making blood rigs, and it was just chaos. I couldn't tell you exactly what I did day in, day out, but it was a lot of running around, dragging heavy things, and it was mud and blood. But yeah, I got the nomination with everybody and my best friends and the Australian crew, and we flew to LA, and I brought my new wife, and she was pregnant at the time, and so we're just like, oh, this is really exciting. And then about 3 categories in at the Emmys, they start the nominations come up on the big screen, and like 4 best prosthetics in a TV series, and our names got up there. It was like we barely sat down at the show. We're like, oh my god, this is happening. And then they're like, and the winner is us for the Pacific. And it was a rush. It was not what I thought it was going to be. It was a little bit better. I was like, really excited, and my heart was racing, and just kind of a whirlwind. We got up on stage and did the thanks. You get like 40 seconds, so it's like, whoa, what are we doing? And you're looking back at the audience, and there's celebrities mixed in there for sure. And then we got to go backstage, and because we were the 3rd category up, they took us into the room where all the trophies were, and it was a huge room, and it was just endless Emmys in there. And they're like, go ahead, take one. And we're like, can I take all of them? This is cool. So yeah, that was really fun. It was an exciting night.
Awesome.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I wanted to mention, because I find special effects work to be so exciting and fun, and I love a good gore moment. I think that's why I really liked I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I definitely want to check out the Pacific now too. But just kind of like transitioning into what you did on the film, like I'd love to know kind of what you did specifically, what you were in charge of, because there was some fantastic kills, some great death reveals. Like it was incredible.
Yeah, for sure. So what would have been? It would have been a year ago, October. Adam Johansson from Odd Studios in Sydney. He calls me up and says, "Hey man," or "Hey mate," usually. We have there's a horror movie coming up, and I need your specific skills because we're really busy with a couple jobs here, and I know you're good at doing blood effects and stuff like that. Would you be willing to come down and do this with us? So I'm like, yeah, sure. I go, what's the project? And he goes, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm like, are you kidding me? I go, I don't know if you know this, but I worked on the second one. He goes, really? He goes, yeah. I go, I did the effects with other people. It's not just me. But Matthew Mungle headed up I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. And me and this other young guy at the time, Clinton Wayne, he and I did most of the blood effects for I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So it was like, oh my god, this is funny. It's kind of a full circle. And what is it? It's like 25 years or 30 years? I think it is.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like it was like because that's what the whole thing is on the movie. So so yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. And like, so he sent me the script, and I went through it, and it's funny because the script is very sort of today's sort of language, the way kids talk and stuff like that. So I'm kind of reading it like, oh, that's funny how they're talking. But the kills, you got the longshoreman, he's there with the hook. So I came down and I made a bunch of blood rigs It was kind of a strange experience for me too, because there's a lot of scheduling going on. So I had to like come down there. There's a sort of a block of time that I was going to help them with it. And then I had to quickly get back here and work on Anaconda, which is the Jack Black and Paul Rudd film coming up. So it was like this race against time. I was like, so I filled in a little bit. So yeah, I did some blood effects for Odd Studios, and helped out with the prosthetics with Mariel McClory. She headed up the onset prosthetics duties. That she was the head of that, and then Colin Ware, who was a supervisor at Odd, and the three of us did a few bloody gags, and I forget his name. Sorry, but one of the characters gets the spike through the boyfriend gets the spike through the chin. You saw it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was that whole living room scene where it's that reveal. So I'm hiding. It's so funny. Like I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't even pay attention to what I kind of look at it, what it looks like, obviously in the screen, but knowing that I'm hiding behind a couch just cracks me up. It's like I'm laying there with this oversized syringe,
yeah,
watching blood, and I'm like, this is so funny and dumb, and so it's always the way. Us special effects people are always hiding behind a couch or some sort of drapery over us, or just in the corner with hoses and syringes. So yeah, I did that, and there was a kill that we did also that there was a few gags that were cut at the absolute last minute. I was quite sad because we were there and they're like, we were gonna do when the cage falls down on top of her, and I had that cage set up when she's picking the lock that she was supposed to rip her arm really, really badly, and I had the cage rigged to bleed, and then we had this other amazing prosthetic that would like peel back. It was going to be really gruesome, and I really don't know what the issue was, but it was either timing or it was just more likely time to get that shot done. They just went, let's just axe that. But it was what a shame, because there was a few that are like, oh, we should do these gags and just have them, But and there was another one, a boy and girl that were killed on a beach that they completely scrapped. So, which is a shame, because there's so many kills that were like just on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, it feels like there should have been a little bit more kills.
Yeah.
It got to a point that I was like, do all of these characters have plot armor and are not going to die at all? And then they start dropping like flies.
Did you call it plot armor? That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something that horror movies do a lot nowadays.
Yeah, this will protect them. We might use them later. Yeah. So the reveal was fun too. The very end of that twist. And then the Odd Studios team did an incredible job with those dummies. At the with the guys that are hanging. Do you remember that scene too? So all those dummies look incredible. Oh my God. And so beautiful work that Odd Studio team did for that. So yeah, that was a real fun one, like to get back into that 90s retro stuff. And Jennifer Robinson, the director, she really wanted it to have that feel of going back to the 90s. It was the feel of the 90s, all that sort of stuff, that throwback stuff, and then right into the 2025 times. So I think she nailed it with that stuff, and everyone looked beautiful, everyone's gorgeous looking actor and actresses. It's like, geez, let's just kill them all. This makes it fun,
Yeah. So the end of the movie kind of gives a bit of a taste of maybe a sequel to this movie. Have there been any conversations of maybe?
I didn't. I'm not at liberty to say if I did know. I don't know. It all depends on kind of how it tracks. If it does well in the theaters, because it was a theatrical release, so that was exciting, because you don't get that too often anymore. Yeah. So I thought for sure that would go right to Sony's. Yeah, to the streaming wherever they were going to send it, but Amazon or whatever. But maybe, that'd be good. Kind of keep a series alive. It would be good to have. I don't know if you want to call it "I Still Know," and then whatever the third no is.
Yeah.
It all has to
I
have
saw
no
someone that
in
was
it.
like, they should have called it "I Know What You Did 2 summers ago."
Yeah. I know what you did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
All that. So yeah, it is fun, and it's to revive some of those old horror movies, especially the teen ones they're fun.
Yeah.
There is a market for those. Look, the horror hardcore don't have to necessarily like it. If it introduces new fans to the genre, I think that's a plus.
For sure.
Not everything is for everyone, and I get that. But we did have fun with some gore. There was actually some good gore stuff in it, and I think that the horror fanatics would probably appreciate that at least.
Yeah. You mentioned the hiding behind the couch, but what was your most challenging part when making this film, and also what was the most memorable?
What was my most difficult for the movie? Well, it was the scene that was cut actually, but it was on the beach, and it was near Bondi Beach, which is quite a famous beach here in Australia. But it's called Little Beach, and it's a tiny little cove, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. And it was at night, and it was like an actual full moon coming up over the ocean, and it was just really, yeah, kind of just perfect for a horror movie sort of setup. And there was a little camp, and then there was like this like cliff hanging over, and the setup was for the girl was by herself. The boy ran off, to go to the toilet or whatever, and then she's sitting by the campfire by herself and just kind of like, where the hell did he go? And then there's blood dripping on the rock in front of her, and then she's like, ooh. Oh. But when they're kind of prepping me for that, they're going, oh, Chad, it's like a meter high rock that you'll be hanging over and just dripping blood on. I'm like, a meter high? That doesn't make any sense. That's only like 3 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then I get there, and it's more like, it's like 5 meters, like 20 feet, like this cliff. It's like an actual cliff. I'm like, yeah, this isn't 1 meter. This is a cliff. And then the onset safety guy is like, oh, you need to be harnessed, and you need, how are you going to do this? I'm like, I don't know. I just got here. Like, what is all of this? And then they wanted me to take a syringe and perfectly drop it from 20 feet above on a windy beach to get this blood to drip perfectly onto a rock. I'm like, I don't think this is going to work, guys. And they're like, okay, we'll work. They reworked it. Thank God. And then I just basically stood over top of the cameraman and dripped blood while I was trying to work with the beach wind to kind of get this drip to work. Yeah. I guess it worked, but that was probably the most challenging, trying to get a blood drip to work. Mm-hmm. And it's really funny because I've done so many of those type of jobs, but I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I was asked to throw blood on the face of this dock, and they're like, okay, there's the setup. It was at Sony Studios too in LA, and the dock is like a ways away. And I'm like, okay, how's this gonna go? Is the camera gonna be over my shoulder, and I'm not gonna flick the blood onto it, and that's it? They're like, yeah. However, the camera's back farther, like it's like a boat floating in the water. And I would say it was a good easily 20 feet, right? And they're like, you have to be behind the camera and flick the blood. I'm like, flick the blood 20 feet. I'm like, I have no idea how I'm just a prosthetic artist. This is a special effects job. They're like, yeah, you do it. And they handed me a bucket with a big 4-inch brush, and they're like, make it work. And the director, Danny Cannon, he was pretty tough, and I was very young. And he was like, okay, go ahead and do it. And I flick it, and you don't see it. Like, it misses. They're like, let's do it again. Flick it, kind of hits the dock, and it goes on and on to the point where he's yelling at me now. It's like, why can't you do this? Why can't you? And I'm like, I'm trying, and I'm trying to flick the blood, and it hits kind of again. And he's like, he snatches it from me, and he's like, let me see that. And he goes to flick it and misses too. And I'm like, just being a smart ass. I'm like, see, it's not as easy as you thought, and he's like, so we had this argument. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm arguing with like, a top level director here. But I stood my ground. We ended up getting it, but it was like 56 takes later.
Oh my God.
Not even lying. So going back to, I Know What You Did currently, and trying to do this drip, I'm like, this is totally a throwback to that moment. I'm like trying to get this stupid drip to land on. Like, I can't believe this is happening again. But it worked, and we moved on. But we never saw the actual stuff. So.
It'll be very fun to talk because actually, I think next week we have the editor of I Know What You Did Last Summer coming on the podcast. So it'll be very interesting to see her take on why these things got cut out.
Yeah, well, I think I do know. It was a scheduling thing. So they had the girl, what's her name? She was from New York. And so she only had like a small window of time to get here. And they just, the timing didn't work out. So we had a whole great kill for her. And it just didn't work out, sadly.
Wow. Awesome. Well, to wrap up, what is a piece of advice or a message that you will give to aspiring SFX prosthetics and makeup artists today?
I always tell sort of my students is be knowledgeable of the people before you, like the people that sort of invented things and got everything kind of rolling. So like Dick Smith and Rick Baker and all these guys from, long time ago, these like the Bill Tuttles and all that, and sort of invented the prosthetic world for us and their techniques and the techniques that they've invented that we now use and that we just take for granted. And it's good to kind of know the history of where everything came from so that we can progress into the future. We've had the technology that it's advanced. It's up to now them to kind of take it forward. We're now using 3D printers and scanning and all that sort of thing now, and that's the future now. It's really incredible. It's moving so quickly, and I remember the materials we were using back in the 80s and 90s, like foam latex for skin, is now silicon, and now it's like we can get a scan of you in LA right now, and it's printing here at the same time, which is it's nuts. So it's really fun. Learn the history, and it'll help us in the future. So yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you.
That's great.
And what is your favorite movie and why?
My favorite movie of all time?
Of all time.
All time.
Oh, geez, like they change when we have this conversation often with people, but I think if I can just sit down and watch, like say if it's a horror movie, it's An American Werewolf in London / The Thing. Those two are my two favorite sort of horror movies. But all-time favorite movie probably would be could be Jaws. That's just, it has a little bit of everything in it. It's got the drama, it's got the scariness to it. So it all falls into the horror world for me. So yeah, those would be my top three. Sorry, I can't have one. It's gonna be three.
It's funny because I don't know if it still is, but for the longest time, I Know What You Did Last Summer, the original, was my favorite horror movie of all time.
Yeah, cool.
Did it get knocked down, I see?
I don't know. I have to say, there's like Smile. I don't know. There's too many good ones.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about it.
I just saw Weapons the other night. Man, did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, on Monday, we'll be interviewing the mom of the kid.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. Yeah. That was a fun movie. I like it when it's a bit of a surprise, and I tell people like, don't see the trailer, just go see it. It makes it funner. So
yeah.
Great. Well, what is coming up for you? Do you have any projects you can fill us in on that you?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of a really big one. That's a Netflix project. I can't tell you the name, sadly, but it's World War II. And like I said, I mentioned Anaconda with Jack Black and Paul Rudd. That was, I did that most of November through January, November through April. So that was a big one. And then an Owen Wilson film that I did some stuff for here. So we're quite busy here in Australia. It was a bit of a slow patch for a while. But now we have a studio here, studios, where they shot Elvis, and I'm sure you guys saw that. And Furiosa was shot in Sydney and stuff. So we do have some big blockbuster films being done here, and Chris Hemsworth's got a big project going on right now too, locally, and so yes, very busy.
Great,
that's awesome.
Where can people follow you and follow your work?
I think you can find me on Instagram. So Chad Atkinson FX Artist on Instagram. That's I'm always there. Or on Facebook, Chad Atkinson FX Artist. I'm on that one. That's my sort of business one. That's got that kind of links those two anyway. So that's the number 1 and 2 if you want to follow me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chad, for being here with us today. It was really, really fun learning about what you did for I Know What You Did last summer.
And cut.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this episode.
You can follow us on all social media as &CUT the podcast. And additionally, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok as That Film Couple for vlogs and extra content. You can also follow me on Instagram as sebi.mp4 and on Twitch as sebasparra1k.
And you can follow me at caitlin.mp4 on Instagram as well.
My name is Sebastian.
And my name is Caitlin.
And this is
&CUT.